G'day, legends, and welcome to the Wednesday Pot Noodle. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight are Liam, Johnny, and Shane. How are you, Liam?
Good, good. The sword is polished, and I am ready to go.
Hey. How you doing, Shane?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Made a very overdue trip to the barber on the weekend, and he did a good job, but probably didn't really appreciate how warm that lovely Beatles mop top of hair was keeping me in Melbourne's weather. So I think it's beanie time for me in the next couple of months.
How you doing, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Jared. Gearing up for my holiday back in sunny Scotland. So only got like 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half left. So yeah, getting all that organised in the financial year. It's getting a bit hectic, but I'm looking forward to it. It should be good.
Happy days. And for me, I'm just going to share a picture because I accidentally uploaded it. So there's my barbecue dinner from last night. Happy days. And yeah, we'll get into the pod. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it as per usual. What we've noticed, I've had a look at some stats and everything for the pod, and this has been our biggest year to date so far in the 4.5 years or so the Celtic Down Under podcast been around. So thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed, who watches, who comments, who shares, follows us on Twitter, Instagram, any of the Facebook groups, all our social medias. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your support. I want to give a shout out to Johnny, Liam, Shane, and Sean and Willie. It's pretty much everyone, I think, who's appeared on the Pot Noodle, the Wednesday pod this season. Appreciate it. And also to all the guys on all the new shows as well. Monday Weekend Review and the Tuesday Crew. Yeah, it's gone from strength to strength. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Enough talking about us. Everyone's going to be waiting on the Brendan Rodgers talk. We basically had 2 pods talking about it all week, so we'll hold off on that for a second. I want to start off with, if you listen to the audio, jump onto our YouTube channel and have a look here. I want to ask you guys, how sexy does this away kit look? Here's some pictures.
Very, very nice.
Wolf whistling's not allowed, is it?
Too late if it's not.
That's a good looking kit right there.
It is, yeah. I like the black and white. It's very good.
I think even someone with a rough looking head like me could, look somewhat decent in that. So yeah, it's a good kit. And yeah, it's just I showed my wife before and she's like, "You're buying it." So no excuses. I got the green light. It's getting ordered tomorrow. Happy days.
It's also good to finally have a kit that is not going to clash with our home kit in any way.
Yeah.
I don't think sorry, Joe. You go.
Go on.
I was just going to say, we've done a couple of black kits now, and to be fair, they're hard to kind of mess up, but I think each one we've done so far has looked really good. If you remember the one from Rodgers' first season in charge with the gold trim on it, I thought that looked that looked outstanding. And even the one a few seasons ago with the clover, very good. And this one knocks it out of the park again. Simplistic. And yeah, I'll definitely have to get it.
There's only really a few colours that Celtic really have for tops, don't they? Black, gold, green and white. I can't think of anything else that's just stick to those and grey. Yeah. Stick to those colours and it's going to be a winner, so.
Yeah, for me, like as Mickey says in the comments here, nice top, less is more. Especially considering you look at the third top with as Liam called it, the fingerprint pattern on it. And then you got a plain black, and then apparently we've got the turtle or whatever you want to call it in our hoops this season. It's it's going to be a nice little combination of things here. I think of the 3 of them, that black kit's the winner. Considering I couldn't get the one you're wearing there, Shane, I couldn't get that this season at all. Never could find it any time in my size. So unlucky. I'll get that one as soon as possible.
Happy days.
Yep.
And Liam will let everyone know as well when it's up on DHgate if you want to save a few shekels as well.
Oh, it was up on DHgate about 3 days ago. It was literally, like someone One of our friends at Axom sent me a picture of it, and literally 20 minutes later, it was on DHgate. Those guys do not miss a trick, honestly.
I thought I'd wait till after the 5 minutes is up, so we can't get done for product placement and advertising and stuff at the front there, Liam, with the whole link
Sorry,
to DH.
other knockoff sites are available.
Yeah.
Secondary Celtic shop.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We'll start it off. The manager's search. All the talk is looking like it's going to be the return of Brendan Rodgers. So we'll go around here. We'll all have a bit of a chat, and I want to get your thoughts on overall Rodgers coming back, the rumours it being him, and then we'll go into further things off the back of that. So we'll start with you, John. What's your overall thoughts if it's Rodgers?
Yeah, look, I think I've basically come to terms with it. It's probably going to happen, right? I think from the chats we've been having, and there's been lots of chats we've been having in our private group chats and stuff, and I admitted it in the group. I'm probably one of those Celtic fans that have softened to the idea of him coming back. If you ask me in Ange's beginning of the season and stuff, when Ange goes, would you ever have Rodgers back? I'd laugh in your face. I genuinely thought I'd never want to I'd never want to see him again, sort of thing. We'll have to come up with another word than rat if he does turn up. I don't know if we can call him the rat if he's our manager and stuff. But
Oscar will.
I definitely think from the candidates that he's probably way ahead as the strongest one. So, and we can't really deny the fact that he brought us a lot of success in the just shy of 3 years that he was here. So, I'm pleased. I'm probably smiling through gritted teeth. I'm upset in the way that Ange has left, but I've probably come to terms with the fact that now that even if I go back to the way we all thought KT was going to stay for 10 in a row and then he didn't, and we all thought Brendan Rodgers was going to be here for 10 in a row and he didn't, and then we thought, all right, well, Ange, this is something we're going to grow from and we can all grow together as sort of stuff. And we thought he could be here for 4 or 5 years, and it just wasn't. And I just think I've now come to the realization, it's probably my naivety, but this is part of modern football. So we'll probably only see, if Brendan Rodgers comes, probably only see him for another 2 years, and then he'll be on again. It'll be it'll be West Ham, or it'll be Everton or somebody else. Do you know what I mean? It'll be just another one of those teams that he moves down to and stuff. Or maybe it'll be La Liga or something. But
hey, Johnny, can you imagine the chaos if he did go to Everton, being a former Liverpool manager?
Yeah, it would be mental, but it's not exactly as if managers in the EPL haven't done, like Jose Mourinho, for example.
Recently.
Yeah, so I'm more happy than I'm sad that he's coming, because I really did believe, and all of us did, that we're at the beginning of something with Celtic, with this team. It's a young team. We really do think we can push on in Europe and stuff. I don't think any of us have expectations of winning anything in Europe, but pushing into knockout stages or maybe even a final would be amazing. And we can all see that we've got that. And I just don't believe that the other candidates necessarily have that experience to get us there as quickly as we probably would like it. Rodgers does, I think. If he's backed properly, he does. So, yeah, like I say, I'm coming to terms with it. It's probably going to happen, and I just didn't think we'd ever see him again. But this is just football. This is Celtic, so I'll back him if he comes. I think we all will. So,
and Liam, we'll get your thoughts.
I'm pretty much as John just said, I'll accept him as the manager because he is a good manager, no denying that. But I'll never trust him again. And that's, to me, that's a big issue. I elaborated on this a wee bit last night, but I think that maybe I'm approaching this from a slightly different mentality just because I've been in Japan for as long as I have. But over here, the concept of walking out on a job in the middle of your contract is just, you don't do that. It's. I don't want it to sound like I'm going all bloody Shaolin monk here, but it's dishonourable, right? It's not. I mean, like when you do a job interview over here, you are directly asked, what is your current contract status? And if you say, like, oh, my contract's up in March, they might say, well, no, sorry, we want somebody to start in January. The idea of you walking out in your current job just does not compute with them. So I've had that drummed into me for about 15 years, which means I'm kind of quite disgusted at how it worked out with Rodgers. But as John said, he comes in, if he does a job, I will get behind him because he's a Celtic manager, and not the manager I want, but at the end of the day, I didn't want him the first time round either, and he ended up giving us a lot of success. So I had to admit I was wrong that time, and I'll be delighted if I'm proved wrong again this time.
And Shane.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty closely aligned to the way Liam's feeling on this, to be honest. I've ummed and ahed about it during the day. Look, there's no doubt, I think, on the list of managers, if you're looking at the list of who the candidates are or who the bookies that think are the candidates, he's probably by far and away the most well-credentialed, not necessarily saying the best, but, you know, he's got a lot going for him in terms of what he's achieved. There's a lot. Look, there are a lot of positives to it. He knows Celtic. He knows Scottish football. He knows the demands of Celtic. He knows what the fans want to see. You know, he can come in straight away. You know, there are a lot of pros to it, and you know, he was still pretty successful at Leicester. You know, all things considered. I guess I'd describe it almost as a little bit of a pair of safe hands. And it's probably that regard that I'm not so over the moon about it. I'm maybe still caught up a little bit in all the whirlwind of how we managed to find Ange, this kind of diamond in the rough, if you will, someone from the other side of the world, maybe someone who a lot of people didn't know but had serious credentials and came and did a wonderful job and you know, really pulled us out of the low ebb we were in. I was kind of hoping we would do similar this time, and we might be a bit more ambitious and look not necessarily to a similar part of the world, but a similar kind of scenario. So look, I get it, I understand it. I'd most certainly back the team if he was given the job, but look, he's not my top choice, that's for sure.
And my thoughts, real simple. I don't want him anywhere near the club. I'll support the team as I always have, but I don't trust the guy as far as I could throw him. And if we're talking about throwing him, look at the top corner of my stupid Brendan book right here that I bought, never read because he was out the door before I actually started reading it, and it got thrown. So I just got my wife to bring that in for me so I could show you. So, you know, not for me. I
tell you something, honestly. See if he does come back, which is more than likely it's going to happen right now, right? See if he comes back and gets on with that stupid chat about, you know, I've been a Celtic man my whole life and I would never do this and that. And I'll see all that David Brent stuff. All of us will be, yeah. We'll be fuming. I cannot stomach that again. It's just such phony bullshit.
If he comes in like Mr. Bean style and just goes on a tour of Glasgow, going at photos of him at the Brazen Head, photos of him, you know, at the front of Parkhead, you know, all this different stuff, and they just take the piss out of it, right?
Yeah.
Then, okay, because he was such a super serious person last time, and he did that if he comes in and he just takes the piss out of it, has a bit of a laugh, and then is like, and owns it, okay, at least I can respect that he's willing to own it. If he comes in, I left because I wasn't backed properly and tries to justify it, he's not going to get anywhere.
Not having that, yeah.
No, you don't slack your boss day one of the new job. You know, that's just not what you do.
He has to own it. He has to come back and own it. Anything to the equivalency would be a PR nightmare to begin his second stint at Celtic with. But there's been a real softening of his image with Celtic people over the course of this sort of managerial search, and I can't help but think the manner in which Ange left has contributed significantly to that softening. I think if that's different or even handled better, I don't think we're having these kind of conversations right now.
I'll just make a point. I don't necessarily think Ange has left in a bad way, right? He did a lot that I wish Brendan had done. He waited until we won stuff. He waited until the end of the season, and he said, "Look, my time's up, and I'm getting a promotion." In his eyes, I'm getting a promotion, right? I don't necessarily. I just think we're all heartbroken. I don't necessarily think like Ange has done anything particularly bad. We all thought, and I don't think he's ever said that, but we all thought he's going to be here for 4 or 5 years. We would see immense growth, and we would become a sort of, I don't know, Porto Ajax equivalent, maybe lesser, in Europe, right, where we're really sort of challenging and stuff. And we didn't get it, and it hurts. And now we're like, well, maybe Brendan Rodgers is an okay. We're sort of going back to the toxic ex, if you like. We're not actually wanting it, but they're okay, so we'll go back there.
Okay, so on that, John, I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, Shane, but something Shane you said before about Willie's and you started talking about softening it up. So Willie's second stint at the club healed old wounds. For me, it's is he going to be, the person you dated and you grew apart, but then you got older, you matured, and you come back together? So that sort of love story at the club, or is it going to be just like a dirty booty call and he's out the door when someone comes knocking on his door in 6 months' time?
Yeah, of course it's going to be that one. What? No, I don't know a single Celtic fan who expects any differently. The second that Rodgers sees a better position, he's gone. Is that? Am I finally realizing that that's maybe just modern football? Is that just where everyone, players, staff, managers, they're all trying to get what in their eyes is the better deal, the better position and stuff, and it's us. We're the only ones that are consistent. So, we can't be too heartbroken about it, I guess, which is hard to do because we're so invested. But
it's going to sound childish, right? But see if he says, "I'm sorry." Day one, first press conference, he says, "I am sorry about what happened the first time I left." That would, it'd be totally insincere, it'd be totally manufactured, but that would go a long way with me personally. At least showing some semblance of contrition and acknowledgement that what he did was wrong. Ange leaving the club, like you say, he got the season over before he left. So in the context of what I was talking about before, he didn't leave in the middle of his job. He finished his job, then said, "Right, job done, I'm off." And he was very, very complimentary of the Celtic support in his goodbye statement. Celtic released a video saying "Goodbye, Ange, and good luck and thank you." I don't remember Celtic ever doing that for another manager. So I think that speaks a lot to how highly the club still regard him. So clearly, whatever deal was done with Spurs, when it was done, how it was done, the Celtic board were clearly kept in touch with it, and clearly it was handled very diplomatically. It was not right, I've got a job offer with some mediocre team, cheerio, like it was with Rodgers, apparently. So I don't think it's really fair to Ange to conflate the two, because one did his job, then, as we say, walked away for what, unfortunately, in current football circumstances, is perceived as a step up. Whereas another guy got offered more money and took a kind of a sideways jump into mediocrity. So I don't really think the two are comparable. But as I said, if he says sorry, or at least shows some acknowledgement that what he did was wrong, I will, don't know if I'd forgive him, but I would give him benefit of the doubt. But the other aspect to this, sorry, I'm ranting a wee bit here, but bear with me, is that football fans generally, we expect absolute loyalty from players and managers. But see, when things aren't going well, we are absolute mercenaries, right? As soon as we are not winning on the park, it's like, get him out the door, scrap that team, And do we really have the right to then throw the toys at the pram when a player or manager does the same thing to us? Just something to think about.
It's a short career at the end of the day, Liam, like for a footballer and for management. Like, look at Jack Ross, for instance. Last time when Rodgers was at the club, Jack Ross was the up-and-coming guy in Scotland. And he'd come in and he'd train and he sounded like it. And there was talk that, if Rodgers stays for the 10 and develops, then a possible look. I remember this one I was listening to. I think it was a Cynic podcast at the time. They told me Rodgers develops, we get the 10, and then he helps train up Jack Ross, who comes in and takes over. And, it's a decade of domination. That's what they were talking about back then. And have a look at what's happened to Jack Ross since. He left St Mirren, Sunderland sucked. There was Dundee United. He had Hibs. He's basically, there's no chance in hell he'll ever get back to that level again.
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't think he needs to own it or apologize for it. For me, sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't think he needs to apologize or anything for my appeasement, I guess. But I definitely don't want spin on what happened. There needs to be an upfront approach, and if any questions are asked, it needs to be handled appropriately and as honestly as possible. Any type or attempt to spin it in terms of that decision and the manner in which he left is going to put a lot of people who have fallen back in his favor offside again. And I think that he will go after 2 seasons again. I think he will head off. And I think the simple fact is we're much more conditioned to this now. It won't be a surprise when it happens again.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll start bringing up some comments from everyone watching. So we'll start off with RL77. Talks with Rodgers reportedly broken down in disagreement over who gets the biggest heated driveway.
Yeah.
Kaiser says Rodgers being back will be fantastic. The man is a proven winner, elite level manager. Once he is appointed, and spending $8 million per player before Europe will signal isn't the board's intent. Andrew Galea, Brendan is not up against Aberdeen this time. Andrew's also said he's not the best, he's simply the most expensive.
Oh, I don't know if that's true.
Mark McDonald's response to Kaiser's thing about an elite level manager. Elite level managers win elite level comps, not the SPFL.
Is the FA Cup an elite level competition?
Yeah.
Fair call.
Strange Love. One fellas, my opinion on Brendan Rodgers, I don't like it, but I will accept it I'll accept it as popular opinion seems to be in favour of him, but I have my heavy reservations. Style, transfers, legacy, he's not Ange.
That's me to a T. He's perfectly distilled my thoughts on it there. Spot on.
He's not massively different than Ange, though. We can talk about that in a minute. We can go through the comments.
It is different, John, because one's based on pressing. Yes, it's a lot of percentage, but one's possession, one's pressing.
Yeah, no, but in both in an attacking sense. So Brendan Rodgers wants to hold possession and attack, and Ange is all about direct passing and high pressure. So Ange's tactics, he's far happier to lose the ball in the opposition third. That's unacceptable to Brendan Rodgers, right? It's possession, goal. There's slight variations of the same attacking football which we want to see. It's not like we're kind of tainting a little bit what the exceptional tactics that Brendan Rodgers had at Celtic. 69 games unbeaten. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't really care if it's just Aberdeen's, as somebody said. It's you can only beat the teams in front of you. We also had big nights as well in Europe with I'm thinking of the Leipzig game, for example. Like we had Brendan Rodgers had shocking nights in Europe as well, but we had good nights as well. So I still think he's the best of the bunch, and he's a comparable manager to Ange in a lot of ways. So I'm like I say, I'm not overly pleased by it, but I guess it's the best we can do at the moment from the list, at least.
Yep. I'll bring up a few more comments. I'm just scrolling through here. There we go. It's what I was looking for. I saw one and lost it. Kevin Mullen. In Rodgers we trust. Let's face it, lads. As long as he brings trophies, we'll be happy.
Yeah.
And then this is towards you, Liam, about the Japanese culture. I agree completely. A man without his word is nothing. Kevin's also gone, only hard thing is listening to his patter, but as long as we win, I'll be happy with it. We got here B. Is ultimately Ange bailed on us, so we've done well to get Rodgers in keeping things going forward. Not ideal though.
That's how I feel, basically.
I'm going to keep a comment here from Strangelove for the next topic because it's one that we're going to talk about. If not Rodgers, who? So let us know in the comments your choice if it wasn't to be Rodgers. So we got Corvo. Rodgers to me is a no-brainer appointment. This is the man. He's been there, done it all. He was able to hang in the Premier League and got to semi-final in European competition.
Mm-hmm.
Mahesh, trust and character is more important than performance. No, for me as well. I don't know if it's more important than performance in the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl, mate, but I get what you're saying. Mickey Moynihan about my book. At least in the book, he's got a spine.
Well played, Mickey. Well played, sir.
That was well done, yep. Andrew's like, I can't believe the board can leave themselves open for embarrassment when he does it again.
Oh, I can. I can completely believe the board would do that.
Corvo's managers come and go. It's about getting results from them while they're here. We would leave the SPFL if the bright lights of the Premier League shine on us. I'd rather not.
No, I wouldn't.
Yep, I'd stay.
Kaiser's Ange left us in a great position, but the way he did it was stinking. Having his agent talk to Tottenham, and speaking of Tommy Burns, he chose money over legacy. Red, Scotland. Sorry, he isn't a toddler. Brendan choosing to rejoin the club is all the apology you should ever need.
Respectfully disagree.
Yep. And here we go. Shane hasn't even taken the job, and you've already got his departure date set. I think we'll just sit back and enjoy his time here, and we leave when he leaves. So that's from Red Scotland. And then Red's
Fair
also
comment.
gone. Brendan's in-game management is the best I've seen in the modern era at Celtic, at least domestically. I don't know
I
about that.
often felt he didn't have a plan B.
We'll see him in the 5-sub era.
Yeah, and remember, neither did Ange. Well, Ange had his team as well, and whenever we went to Plan B, we complained, right? Because it wasn't working. So
He did have a plan B, Johnny. It was to make plan A better.
yeah, well, true.
And then
Yeah,
by doing that, it meant 3 subs at 60-minute mark.
yeah.
Like clockwork.
Yep. All right. Michael Ross's comment, Brendan's beautiful human beings will terrify Sevco.
Not very often you see beautiful and Sevco in the same sentence, but there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. All right. So, as I said before, guys, if it's not going to be Rodgers, who's your preferred candidate? So I've got a list of a few here. So you've got Knutson, Fark, Maresca, Buckingham, Muscat, Jansen. There was Potter. Who else has been linked? Gallardo is the one that was in the comments before as well, which I'll bring up. So Strangelove says, Marcelo Gallardo is my choice. Won everything in South America, wants to come to Europe and is out of contract. Much better CV than Brendan Rodgers. I would love for him to sign. Either him or Knutson would be my two favourites.
South America is a league we have not really, I mean, apart from Burnaby, we've basically not touched South America for a long time. So someone with the knowledge of that league, and Gallardo's going to have contacts in Europe as well because of his playing career. That would be. See, that's the main. I think that's the problem with Brendan Rodgers, putting the emotional stuff out of it. It doesn't excite me. Ange excited me because I thought, great, we're going to sign players from Asia, we're going to sign players from Australia, we're going to explore new markets. There's no new market that comes with Rodgers. Knutson brings the Northern European market, potentially. Muscat would potentially have the continuation of the Japanese market. Gallardo brings potentially South America. You know, what is the new? What's the new market we're going to see opened up this summer? I really hope we don't go back to signing English Championship players. You know,
That's the Midlands, Liam. We're hitting the Midlands market.
God.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get what you're saying, and I guess this is the problem with going back to old managers. But we forget that he had a lot of duds, but he had a lot of success in the French market in the in the sort of English lower leagues market, Dembele's and Edwards and the Chams and all the likes and stuff, you know. So I mean, is it going to be exactly the same? Possibly, and it's not exactly what we want. We wanted to explore, like you say, these Eastern European, Northern European, East Asian markets and stuff. But you know, I think there's a little bit of sourness with Rodgers, which is, you know, we're going back to the exact same. But that going back to that was success, right? So, and it was a lot of success.
Well, it's going to be the acid test, isn't it? How much of our transfer activity in the last 2 years has been down to Celtic as a club getting their act together, or how much of it was just down to Ange? I think we're going to find that out in quite short order.
Well, I can use that as a gateway as a segue onto one of the topics that Shane wanted to talk about, and then we can always come back to this a bit later. But Celtic are rumoured to be signing Norwegian wonder kid Odin Thiago Holm from Vålerenga for £2.6 million. So talking about the recruitment as what you just said there, Liam, is this the first step in our new recruitment structure where we sign players to suit our club's philosophy that we've implemented over the last few years? Or are we going back to the old Peter Lawwell, sign cheap with players with potential to sell on for a big fee later on system? Reason I'm asking, as you said, this signing in particular, doesn't matter who we bring in. That's not going to be any particular manager's player, if that makes sense. Like, we all know Kyogo was Ange's signing. Atate, Ange's signing. Maeda, Ange's signing. This guy here, Odin Holm, is not going to be Rodgers signing, or the only one he could potentially be would be Knutson's if he was to come in, because he's Norwegian as well. But yeah,
the most likely scenario is it's a player that Ange identified last season at some point. And Celtic have thought, well, do you know what? Even if the manager isn't here, that's a player worth having anyway.
I mean, there's an entire staff at Celtic that, you know, it's not just Ange that's going through Football Manager or Transfer Market trying to find the next deal, right? There's all these staff members with expertise and trying to fight. So, I mean, Ange will definitely be on that, you know, committee, so to speak. But it might have been one that he has agreed to as a target, but it would hardly be only the manager. This is true if Rodgers comes in, or any manager at all. It'd hardly be just down to them. It'll be down to our entire sort of network. So, you know, it probably is one that Celtic has identified previously, and they were going to go in for whoever the manager was. But I think I think this goes down to the sporting director stuff as well. But I think if the board has an idea of how Celtic should play and to excite and entertain the fans, which means revenue and money, then hopefully this guy fits in. But I'm going to be very honest, I know absolutely nothing about him, so I'm hoping he's the real deal.
Well, I agree with Liam on what he said. I think more than likely Ange has been the one to identify Odin and wanted to bring him in, and it's just simply a continuation of what Ange wanted. But the kid's impressive. You know, he's only 20. He's played north of 70 games for the Vålerenga first team already. You know, he's good. He's a midfielder. He's got a lot of attributes that I think would have worked in an Ange system, but he's adaptable. He can play as a deep midfielder. He can play further forward. He's quick. He's good on the ball. Like, there's a lot of attributes that even he might not necessarily be the signing of the new manager coming in, but he's most certainly going to be someone that can be considered in his plans. That's for sure.
Plus, there's a perfect opportunity for, you know, Odin brings the hammer down on Rangers headlines. You know, it's just...
Well, is it Vålerenga at the moment? Does anyone know the link between Celtic and Vålerenga?
Ronnie
Henrik Larsson managed the other, you know.
Well, I have to take that on notice. I wasn't aware of that, but it was the club that Ronnie Dyler went to after he left Celtic.
Pretty sure Henrik Larsson was there for a time as well.
I wish I'd done better research now. Now I look silly.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I may be getting them in Helsingborg mixed up now that I think about it, actually.
He went to Helsingborg, Liam, but yeah, same, but different. You know how it is. There we go.
Scandies, yeah.
So I'll bring up some comments here. So Robert Gibson, Peter Lawwell has chosen himself in his reflection as the assistant.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh dear.
Now, talking about the continuity, so Kaiser's saying, I think the continuity of signings comes from young Lawwell in the director of football role.
If that's the case, then I'd be quite happy with that.
Yep. With the system he's come from. Andrew Galea is a midfielder. Which midfielders are we selling? Which ties into Corvo down here. Could Odin maybe come in to replace O'Reilly or Moy? So there's talk Moy's retiring. So I think he could potentially be the replacement there. Then we've got about Rodgers. Michael Ross is the market Rodgers knows is very expensive.
Yeah.
Mahesh on the Statsons. Thiago Hom, his heat map says he's an Ange target. He puts himself about in midfield, which ties in what you were saying, Shane. Then we got Michael Ross is saying not a fan of signing player without a manager. And Andrew Galera is I fully expect us to sell Hatate or O'Reilly from our midfield.
Yeah, look, I never heard the Moy rumor at all, but I don't know how old he is, but that would be definitely a shame for us. I would more likely expect to see Hatate or O'Reilly move on in the summer, to be honest.
One or the other. We're not going to sell both.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, because we're not going to sell all of our best players, but yeah, I would.
The Moy thing, though, as a general rule, looking at it journalistically, right, I don't put much faith in a story unless I read it from 3 or 4 different sources that are clearly have got independent takes on it. The Moy thing I've seen this week, it's been about 5 or 6 different people have ran it, and it's just been the same copy regurgitated again and again, which tells me one person started this story. Might be true, but I'm inclined not to believe it based simply on the scarcity of sources.
That's it. Let's start a story then. Let us know in the comments. Let's start a story. Put it out there. Put something in the comments. We'll find something. We'll tweet it out and we'll try and get it going.
He's a pretty quiet individual, though, Liam. It would be right up his alley to just completely not announce his own retirement.
Do a Mark Duca and just disappear, or a Lucas Neal. Australian players are known for that.
That young lady approached me in a nightclub and said, "There's a rumour you're the best lover in Scotland." I says, "I know, hen. I started it."
Jeez.
Oh, jeez.
I did really well keeping that one clean. Give me some credit, boys. Come on.
Yeah, no.
I wanted to use sound effect, but I didn't want to push the wrong button and drop something we can't do now.
Boing.
All right, Liam. So there's a topic about Stevie Hamill being appointed as the head of academy coaching at the club. You wanted to discuss this on the pod. I think it was you or was it Willie? One of us did. Anyway, is this a good appointment behind the scenes at Lennoxtown? What are your thoughts, Liam?
Developing young Scottish talent, yes, good signing. Motherwell have got a track record of developing good young Scottish players, and it's a market that we've underutilised lately, mostly because I don't think the product's been good enough. But if Hamill has the eye to pick out players, maybe when they're that bit younger, if he can source an up-and-coming talent at like 15 or 16 as opposed to 18 or 19, get them into Celtic that bit earlier and we can develop them more. Because I think a lot of the problem with Scottish footballers is that quite a lot of Scottish players are relatively late into the game. They don't, Ajax have guys that have been there since they were like 6, 7, 8 years old, right? Most of Celtic's academy players have probably been there since their mid-teens at best. So I think that is hopefully something we're going to work on, is getting these prospects in earlier and building on their potential with a professional setup. And yeah, Stevie Hamill's got all the coaching badges, he's got all the credentials. As I say, I think he's good at sourcing young talent, which is what we need for the academy position. So yeah, good acquisition, good signing. Hopefully good in the future for the Scottish national team as much as it is for Celtic.
Johnny, what's your thoughts?
I very much agree. I think any appointment's good. Any new appointment's good. Bringing in as many staff that we think we need to develop young players is a good thing. We always talk about this.
Unless it's Brendan Rodgers. sorry, couldn't resist
it. We've talked about how like we need to make sure that our B team has like a path into the first team and stuff. We have not seen that really happen as of late. I think who's the last one that's really done it? Maybe Stephen Walsh, but he's in and around dropping out together. So I think bringing in some fresh perspectives is a good thing. And hopefully we push on and we get that conveyor belt from B team through to reserves into the first team. So yeah, pleased, always pleased.
Just for me, like what we were talking about there, John, like we've been talking about, we need to have a first team squad where we have a starter, not much of a drop off to their replacement, but then that third person in that position for me needs to be eventually get to the point where it's someone we've developed, brought through the academy. They're breaking in at 16, 17, that third stringer, like left back or centre back or whatever. And then once they've got a bit of playing time behind them, and one of the first two move, if the first guy gets sold, second guy steps up, and eventually we get that conveyor, not just within the first team, but in the whole club where, all right, the young kid now steps up into the backup role. Then we look to bring another guy in, and we just keep placing internally like that. Long story short, it'll save us a lot of money on fees. It'll also bring back the homegrown players that we need for Europe. So,
I mean, yeah, and the best example of how to do it very, very well that I can think of was that Ajax team that got through to the semi-finals of the Champions League, where it was, I'm just going to say a number. It was like 7, 8, or 9 of their players were all academy players, and that's how to do. That's exactly what and they did exactly what you described, Jared. So it is. I'm not saying that we have to do that. I don't think that's going to have to be like a solidified plan for us. But exactly as you described, having that third string player as an academy or a youth player it's just beneficial for everyone, right? And then if they don't quite cut it, they will still go on to be successful football players and stuff, and we might be able to reap a sell-on clause or whatever. So yeah, it's a good appointment, and I'm pleased for everyone, to be honest.
So it's basically like me saying for this season just gone, instead of bringing in Moritz Jens for half a season on loan, you give Stephen Welsh a chance. You give Bosun Lowell a chance. If Dane Murray was, you give them a chance to be not the starting centre back, not even the replacement. So you have 3 strong, and then you have that 4th and 5th guys at that position. But as Andrew Galea says here as well, and this is what I agree with, it can only happen if the B team are in a decent league.
Yeah, that's the fundamental truth there.
Oh, they got to play better and get promoted then in the league that they're in. Is that not how it goes? Is that not the system they're in now?
They could win that league by 15 points and they still wouldn't get promoted. That's the problem.
Are they locked in? Is that it? They can never leave that league?
I believe so.
Oh, well, there you are. Yeah, that's a problem.
Shane, come on. Here we go.
Yeah, no, good. Look, I was reading up on this just before we started. I was so distracted reading up on this, I actually burnt the toaster that I was had in the toaster. Unfortunately, I was like, "What's that smell?" I was just so distracted. Anyway, a short little tidbit. But I never said it was going to be funny. Now, so look, I understand reading into this that this is a position that the SFL have asked us to put someone or ask clubs to make sure that they had someone in charge of. In this director of coaching role, or at least that's what I understand from reading into it. He seems pretty impressive. Look, when he left or finished his career at Motherwell, he went effectively straight into their academy setup, and seemed, from everything I was reading, seemed to be very highly thought of, which eventually led to him actually getting the main gig at Motherwell when Graham Alexander left. Now, it didn't exactly work out, but one of the things that was continually highlighted was his contribution to their academy and their youth setup. So for all intents and purposes, he sounds like a good appointment. And it was quite interesting trying to get information on this and trying to get the official club information on it. I noticed that in our media releases, he's Stevie Hamill now, but he was Stephen Hamill when I was looking into the other news outlets. But for Celtic, he's Stevie Hamill.
It's like when you read a report and it says Chris Boyd, but if you read Celtic fan media, it's a 4-letter word we can't say on here.
I really thought you were going to say it.
Liam, you can say knob. There you go. But yeah, like I get it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like for me, Shane, like the position where every club needs to have someone in that position, and that's what they're trying to do. It kind of reminds me back of around the turn of the around 2000s ish or something like that, when the Belgium league underwent their thing, where all the youth teams through the league, they had to have a director of football. They had to all implement a 4-3-3 formation, and there was a certain like a national curriculum they rolled out, similar to what they tried to do over here, and it got nowhere. And they had a national curriculum, and it took them a good 10, 15 years to get those players through the academy into first team football, playing week in, week out, moves to bigger clubs to get the Belgium national team up to where it is now in the world rankings. So to me, looking into it, it seems like this is Scotland's first step down that path. If every club has to have one, great. Now you can get all the director of academy coaches together and talk about what's the plan, how are you going to develop, what sort of football do you want, not just for the league within the national team, and look to progress instead of having this like route one, get it to the big kid up front and just try and get him to header it in or whatever. Try and actually develop football instead of kicking lumps out of each other.
That's who we haven't considered for the manager role. Sam Allardyce. There you go.
Transfer window time. Only one step worse than Sam Allardyce, bringing in Harry Redknapp. Just for him hanging out the car window.
I wouldn't mind the press conferences, though.
Let's get 4 legs and more money than Rangers. Harry Redknapp's Doug.
So RL77, there's interesting stuff out there now with youth academies doing research on player intelligence, game intelligence. I hope we're doing that too. You'd bloody well hope so. If you've got Stevie Hamill there alongside Chris McCart, I think you've got some good people heading up the academy. So, and Kaiser's saying he still thinks we should establish a Celtic group, buy Shamrock Rovers, get the B-side playing in the Irish League instead. The only issue with that, Kaiser, is say we want to put some players over at Shamrock and then we have an injury crisis and we need to recall someone outside the transfer window. Yeah, good luck with that because it's an international clearance.
Very true.
Plus, asking young boys to relocate to another country might not, a lot of them might not be comfortable with that at such a young age.
Yeah. So, Liam, you wanted us to put on the run sheet about with Celtic making the Champions League and the Women's World Cup kicking off next month, is now the time for the board to make some major investment in the women's team. So I'll throw that one over to you to get the conversation rolling.
Right. So the Women's World Cup kicks off next month I believe it's in Australia and New Zealand. Am I right?
Yep.
And so I was reading today, and I think it was in The Guardian, that FIFA are wanting mega money for the TV rights to this. So clearly there's a growing market there. We have seen, certainly people who watch BBC or watch television in the UK have seen the growth, interest in women's football, both in England and Scotland. And I really think the time is right for Celtic to step up and make our women's team. We're already a professional team, but let's make it a well-financed professional team. Because the thing is, you could have a team on the park that would dominate women's football in Scotland to the same extent the men's team currently dominate the domestic game. And it would probably cost us less than the signing of one first-team player for the men's team. You're probably looking at 3 or 4 million to make it happen.
So, Liam, just to jump in there for a sec, the current spend is Sevco was spending like $1.5 million on their women's team. Glasgow City was about, I think it was 750,000 to £1 million on it, and we were spending 500 to 700,000 on our team this year. They're the rough numbers off the top of my head that I can remember. You're talking about There you go. Kaiser's just confirmed that women's team $350K a year.
Yeah.
So our wage budget for our first team for like 2 weeks, if I'm being generous, would probably cover what the women get for the year.
Yeah.
So if we were to, like, as you're saying, spend 3-4 million, our academy costs us, I think it's 2.5 to 3 million a year to operate. And look at the lack of players breaking through to the first team. So if you spent the same money on the women's team, you'll have the biggest budget in the league. And as you're saying, Liam, we're off to the races.
Put it this way, the money that we have freed up and hopefully will free up by getting rid of Vasilis Barkas, hopefully getting Albin Ajeti off the books, and then selling maybe 1 or 2 players, would, just in the saved wages alone, would create enough revenue to pump a few million quid into the women's team for the year.
We've got an interesting take from Red Scotland. So I think Celtic need to keep the finance for the men's team away from the women's team. I'm not remotely willing to accept the detriment of Celtic Football Club to finance the women's game.
But
that's the
women's game is part of Celtic Football Club. That's a fundamental as far as I'm concerned. We have teams at different levels. We have a B team, we have a youth team, we have the men's first team, and we have the women's team. That is all. It's all Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's entitled to his opinion, but a tad anachronistic, I think, to be honest.
I think it's a little bit short-sighted as well, right? And
Yeah.
I think if we have a successful women's team, and women's football continues to grow, then it's an entirely new potentially new revenue stream entirely, right? Which, if you're still super focused on the men's first team, that could potentially then buy a new player, winning the Champions League, winning their cups, all of that stuff, and then getting tickets through the door and stuff. We've got this new stadium coming in. It's all new. It's all more money into the big pot that is Celtic and stuff. So, yeah, and with women's football getting more and more popular. I mean, I was speaking to somebody recently, and she's played soccer her entire life, and I said, "What team do you follow?" And I think she said Chelsea at the time. I said, favorite players and stuff. So I don't watch the men's team. I just watch women's team. Don't know any of the men. So I never watched men's football. Anyway, and that's good. That's how it's going to be. It's going to grow like that. So, yeah.
I've got a friend, an American friend of mine, who's a guy, right? But he only watches women's football because he thinks there's too much theatrics, diving, and cheating in the men's game. He thinks the women's game is cleaner, more honourable, and it's a more entertaining spectacle as a result. That's just one man's take on it, but that is another way to look at it. If you want to say it's a different game, say, well, in some ways it is. It's a better game in some ways.
Well, we've got a comment here from Strangelove saying women make up 50% of the population. It's short-sighted not to see growth in football. Besides, I'd love to see my daughter represent the Celts. Now, on top of that as well, like we went through it with the AFL, so the Australian Football League over here, would have been back in the 90s, I reckon, where they were trying to really get the mums in to become club members and support them, because what they thought was you get the mums in, then suddenly the kids will play junior footy. They'll come through. That's the next generation of players. If they don't play, the mums are saying that, like, the dads want to take their kids to the footy, cool, but the mums will also take their kids. And then suddenly you've got a whole new generation. You get the single mums, you get the parents, you get them all in. Then those kids, through their parents, it gets passed on, not just through their dad, but through both of their parents, and mum or their dad. And then you get your next batch of fan coming through. So, yeah, it's for me, it's one of them where, it makes sense to invest in it.
I mean, if you look at the new kit launch today, if you see the video on YouTube, the women's team player Shen features as prominently as any of the men's players do in the ad. So clearly the club realised there's money to be made in targeting, directed marketing at female fans. So, yeah.
Yep, now's the time. Women's football is starting to really I mean, been growing for a little while, but it's really starting to pick up momentum now all over the world. I mean, it's going to get a real shot in the arm here with the World Cup in the next month or so, but over the world, it's getting bigger, and I think it is actually appealing. It's funny you raised that story, Liam, about the comment about your friend watching the game and not seeing the kind of the diving and the stuff that's a little bit unsavory. I think it does appeal to a whole new set of fans who haven't been able to get into football before. I have no doubt, on Johnny's story, there'd be a lot of people who support a club and purely the women's team. I think it makes, in regards for a even more family-friendly environment, which brings more people involved as well. So I think now is absolutely the time to get behind it. Our girls did an incredible job towards the end of the season. They were unlucky not to take the title home, but they did a great job and they finished second. Let's show them what an achievement they've done by backing them in financially even further.
I'll tell you something, but what it's worth, Jacinta strikes a better corner kick than anybody in the men's team at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm still bloody frustrated that she's going to pick Argentina over Australia to represent the national team. I really think we've missed a beat on that one. So and that's not trying to be biased, but I genuinely hold her in very high regard, and I wish those in charge of our national team would do something about that to avoid that happening.
Yeah.
They've never really given her much love, though. Let's be honest.
No.
There is generally a perception, I'll be honest with you, that the league here and the league that a couple of the girls in the Matilda squad are playing at is better than the league in Scotland. And whilst I don't necessarily disagree with that comment, I think the women's league here is pretty high quality and is very good. I think that's being too simplistic, and I think it's ruling out players of Jacinta just purely because of the perception of the league. Whereas if you look at Jacinta and her performance, she's been good for Celtic for a little while now. And so I think people should have a different viewpoint on the Scottish League and Jacinta as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I'll bring up a few comments now. Just go through them, find the ones that I can do.
Yeah.
The women's game is enhancing the male team. It's a fantastic environment to bring in new fans.
Yep.
What do we got here? There we go. Michael Ross says it's brilliant, perfect introduction to Celtic for families with young children.
That's it. Yeah, it's just bringing in, like lots of people are pointing out, we're just bringing in the rest of the population. There's plenty of women that support Celtic, and a lot of them will probably feel more comfortable going to a women's game than they would the men's game. And that's not to say that we're not a particularly friendly bunch. There's most women that go to Celtic Park will be more than comfortable, but some of them that maybe not follow Celtic or football especially passionately might be more comfortable getting introduced to watching the women's game, and that's just a whole new demographic that we can sort of entice and to start supporting Celtic.
Well, was it Strangelove the doctor that said just before about wanting to see his girl play for Celtic, right?
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell, right? If you go through previous history and where women's football maybe was really under the covers or hadn't necessarily gotten to the level it was, now at the level it's at and where we hopefully see it going, you've got little girls growing up now who say, I can play for Celtic. It's not just I'd love to, but we can't, or it's women don't play for Celtic. It's like, I can play for Celtic. I can have that dream now. That's it in a nutshell for me.
Yep, I totally agree with you. Yeah. And this, just a slight tangent, sorry, Jared, before we move on. I'd also like to point out that we've already had female managers manage men's first teams. That's already happened with Shelley Kerr in Scotland, right? So it's the talent and experience and the knowledge massively overlapping now. So it's getting more and more equal. So I mean, there's still a huge gulf, like gigantic gulf, but it's narrowing, and eventually it will be comparable. So.
All right, so we'll leave that topic with these last two comments. So Kaiser, Anyone who is put a limit on dreams, ladies, have them too, you know. And then CJ, some of the biggest Celtic fans I know are women. They love the sport, they love the club, they wear the green and white hoops. They are one of us, 100%.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that topic there. Now, a tweet just came through from Anthony Joseph about 20 minutes ago. Update: Celtic talks with Brendan Rodgers reaching an advanced stage. Understand he's been offered a better deal than his previous contract. Celtic willing to back him with transfer budgets they believe will help the club compete in the UCL, as well as continue domestic dominance. So that's came out while we were on the air. Now, I had a couple of funny little ones here. It's like a 2-minute thing on each of these to finish the pod off. So we'll go around quickly. Let us know in the comments as well your thoughts on this. Who in the present squad is the most naturally gifted player at Celtic? I'll go first to give you boys some thinking time. For me, I would put it down to either Kalmack or Jota. Shane?
Yep, no, Jota for me.
Johnny?
Naturally gifted is a hard one. It insinuates that they're still really, really rough, or just effortless. So I'm probably inclined to say Kyogo, to be honest, in the sense that little bit rough still, and potential is so exponential that it will be better than any of the players we've got currently at Celtic. But yeah, debatable. Kalmack's a really good shout as well. Probably be more reasonable to say Callum McGregor, but I'm going to say Kyogo.
Liam? Got your
I'll say
Japan
Rio
link as well?
Hatate. If you said to me that in 3 or 4 years' time, one of the Celtic team is going to be playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid, the one it's most likely to be is Rio Hatate, in my opinion. So by that metric alone, most naturally gifted player we've got at the moment.
Well, you got a few people agreeing with you in the comments. CJ saying Hatate, Strange loves Jota, Scott saying Hatate, Jamie saying that, Franny's saying Jota, G'day Vinny saying Rio, Mickey saying Jota, Andrew Clear saying Moy, Robert Gibson, Kobayashi, RL77, Justina.
Oh, nailed it.
And then Franny saying Kalmack's the more complete player in terms of decision making. Jota's the most skillful. That's pretty much what I was thinking.
Really good
And
point.
the other one, just for another chuckle to end the podcast, since Dermot Desmond is currently in Glasgow, we saw his plane. It's landed. M-Celt. Everyone's tracking it on their flight things on Twitter, being some sort of, just tracking planes like weirdos. Let's discuss the following. How would you guys feel if Celtic had celebrity owners and a documentary going on it like what Wrexham's got? This is, for me, don't we already have a celebrity owner because, one of Desmond's kids is married to one of the Cause people, and Desmond also has a mad stash game, so he looks like some sort of crazy psycho bloody World War II nutbag. What are your thoughts, Liam?
I mean, he's maybe a wee bit too old to play a Bond villain now, but 20 years ago he would have been nailed on for it. Celebrity owners I'm fine with. Owners of, shall we say, morally questionable countries, on the other hand, I would not be fine with, and I'll leave it at that.
Johnny?
I would be very supportive of the documentary in the same way like Sunderland Till I Die sort of stuff. I think that'd be fantastic to see the inner workings of Celtic and stuff. I personally don't think. I think the owners should be silent. I don't want to know. I don't know who they are. I don't want them to really get involved. I just want them to be fans and leave actually the running to other people. So I'm not a big fan of any celebrity being involved. That's it.
Shane?
Similar to Johnny, the documentary space, I would have hesitations. It has to be done right. It has to be done properly, and it can't just be some sort of celebrity play thing where they're the stars and the club's kind of in the background. As long as the club is the main focus and it's around the club, and it's not obviously putting the club in a bad light unnecessarily, then I'm fine. Celebrity owners, I'm not too fussed with, as long as they've got the club in their heart and the club's best interests in their mind, and they can do the job that's needed of them. I don't really mind.
For me, yeah, the documentary, as you guys have said, needs to be done right, but they can't even get Celtic TV right, so I don't have high hopes for it.
Documentary cutting out halfway through watching it, and audio problems.
Yeah, it's so I'd love it, but it has to be done right. Robert Gibson has to bring it up. Put the Gallaghers in the zone.
God.
You'd never get anything agreed to, Robert. They'd just completely bicker and never talk, and nothing would happen.
I heard though that HBO were doing a dramatisation of Morelos' time at Rangers, Game of Scones.
Yeah.
Sorry,
There
see
we
myself
go.
out.
Yeah, so just with the celebrity owners, yeah, I wouldn't have an issue with it as long as they're in the right spot and they've got the finances right, and they're not going to put the club in a bad spot where we need another guy to come and save us in 10 years' time or whatever. Then let's let them come in and invest in the club, spice up the boardroom a little bit. But anyway, I think we'll leave the podcast there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. Social media channels are up the top there. If you haven't subscribed to them or followed them all, please do. The audio podcasts for all 3 shows this week are going to be a little delayed getting released because we're in the process of changing over our hosting platform. So you can find us all on YouTube this week. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hail, hail.
Hell,
Hail, hail.